Welcome everybody to the SuperDataScience Podcast. Got a super exciting guest again on the show, Ben Taylor. Ben, welcome back. Great to have you here.
Thanks for meeting up again.
So what have you been up to? Like since the last time we spoke, you've done so many new things.
Yeah, so I'm now full-time on my startup, which for anyone out there, including yourself, doing a startup, it's a lot more stressful than you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because you have different knobs you can turn. So one of them would be people.
Yeah.
You may not have money to hire more people. And then you've got money. You can inject money. Then the other resource you have is time, which usually means you end up working ridiculous hours. And so one of the things we've been doing to work these 80, 90, 100-hour weeks is we've been doing something called polyphasic sleeping.
Oh, wow. No way. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for the last year and I love it. So I go to bed at 11, I wake up at 2:30 a.m. or 3 a.m. and then I work. And then I need to sneak in 2 20-minute naps during the day. Yeah. And sometimes I can get away with something like 13 or 14 minutes. Yeah. So if you really optimize your naps, you can do it. And then the one other thing we've been doing, which other people think is absolutely crazy, is we're doing intermittent fasting.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And so you're thinking like, well, is that because you don't have enough money coming through the startup? It's like, no. We actually intentionally do it. So we do it every week. And so we'll fast. We won't eat for sometimes 2 days or longer. Yeah. And the thing I really like about it is the first day sucks. It's terrible. You're grumpy. But the second and third day, you're no longer hungry. So like right now, I didn't eat yesterday. So right now I have a heightened sense of alertness. So I really like it when I'm programming. Yeah. So that's kind of the body hacking. So I've been doing the startup. We have customers. We have a really good pipeline. We haven't been able to hire our third employee yet, but we think we're close, and we've been talking to salespeople. So the startup this year will land somewhere between supporting our families, which I think we're there. Yeah. Barely, to like very successful. So somewhere in between. Hopefully it's closer to this and not that. Yeah. And then one of the things I was mentioning to you before the call, I did get invited to go out to DC to present to the EEOC, which they're the department of government in the US that oversees racism and sexism and bias in the workplace and in the community. And they do a lot of the discovery for the class action lawsuits, and they carry them all the way to trial. And so I presented to them on racism and how AI can actually fix racism. And I love this story because it goes across so many different verticals and disciplines where there's no amount of training you can give a human to fix this problem. And everyone's racist. It's like myself included, and you, and your grandma, and like everyone is racist. And as much as we try to resist that, we say, wait, I'm not racist. Yeah. If you put 100,000 applicants through me, you'll see it can't be balanced. Like it's not. You'll have some stereotype, and based on your upbringing and your personal background.
Interesting.
But AI can fix it. And the one last point for that story, which I found really discouraging, it kind of amplifies this point. In the US, we have allowed people to do criminal background checks on you. Yeah. So let's say I'm a data science startup and I want to hire you, which that's probably true. I want to hire you. And I find out that you've gone to jail for methamphetamines and like robbery. I can ask.
Not true. Just for
okay.
Not true.
And I can ask you that during the job screen, and legally in the past you were required to say like yes, you mark the felony box, and you wouldn't continue in the application process. And they've been discouraging that because they've noticed that it has adverse impact against minorities, because in the US we have a terrible prison system cycle. Like I think if you look at the numbers, it's really depressing how many people are thrown in jail in the US, and that has a very heavy skew towards blacks. And so they've been encouraging people to remove the box. So remove the felony check, because you having a felony 3 years ago actually has no bearing on your ability to be a good data scientist. So that sounds like a good idea, right? Yeah. Like I think it sounds like a good idea, but it actually turns out like this shows you how terrible humans are. So what they've noticed is by removing the box, it's made the racism worse.
Oh, how is that?
Because before you were allowed to ask me if I had had a felony.
Yeah.
Now you're not. And so if you're just going to assume I've had one.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
So this is why we need AI. And so the way we do it with AI is normally with AI, we're so focused on teaching the computer to remember and to generalize. And so the approach that HireVue came up with, and lots of other people do that, is you actually teach it two things at once. So you teach it to remember what you care about, but at the same time, you're teaching it to forget.
Yeah.
So you're rewarding it to forget race and to forget gender. And if this is confusing to people, the simple way to explain it is if I gave you a resume, you could look at the name and where I'm from, and you could predict my race and gender.
Uh-huh.
But if I start taking that away, eventually I can remove enough features that you have no chance of predicting my race and gender. And now you're focused more on my credentials. And so in a similar fashion, that's what the computer does, but on a much deeper scale.
Okay. No, that's really cool. And so many interesting things right there. I love this. This is like a very interesting dynamic and saturated start to the conversation. So now we're going to dig into these. And just for those out there who haven't heard the first podcast with Ben, Ben is like a super data scientist, like a genius. I shouldn't say super because that's the name of the courses. So I think genius data scientist. He's got really amazing articles on LinkedIn. You guys have to check them out. You're the head data scientist for HireVue, is that right?
Yeah, so I was the chief data scientist for HireVue, and now I'm their data advisor, which is
because
very
you have a startup, right?
Yeah, so I'm the chief data officer for Ziff.ai.
Ziff.ai. Double F?
Yeah, double F.
So Ziff.ai. So you got your own startup. And so that's some really exciting stuff. And of course, I want to drill into more of that. But I would love to start with the polyphasic sleep. That's so cool because after podcast number 2 with Adlan de Ponteves, who's my business partner, a lot of people were like, it's because he also does polyphasic. He does 3 hours a day and then also naps, right? And
I love that.
And he's been doing that for 3 years. And a lot of people came back and said, first of all, some people say that's impossible. Others were like, just take care of yourself. You're going to die, be careful. This is insane. This is unhuman. And now we've got an amazing example of a second person who not only just does that, but also you do the eating, what's it called? The intermittent fasting, which is another stress on your body. And you seem to be fine. So tell us about that. What made you start this polyphasic cycle?
Well, so it was actually suggested to me from HireVue's CTO, Lauren Larson, where when he first told me about it, I thought it was stupid. I thought it was crazy. I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah.
But then later, when I started to become really stressed for time, because I'm working full time for HireVue and I'm working equivalent full time on my startup as much as I can.
Yeah. I
kind of came back around and realized that, wait, you're getting time for free. So there's a Ben in a parallel universe that has 15 fewer hours per week than I do now.
Yeah.
I want to have the 15 hours of extra time. And so I talked to him again about it and I tried it. And the first week was really rough. I could feel him. I felt impaired. When I was driving, I was like, I
shouldn't be driving.
I should not be driving right now. But I've figured it out and I feel great. And the trick is, you have to be really strict on your schedule, and you have to perfect your naps. And so when I sleep at night, I sleep on my stomach or my side. But when I take my naps, I always sleep on my back, and my mouth's probably open. I probably look like a fool because I need maximum oxygen. And then I have ear protection. Yeah. And then I use a sleep mask. And so there's no distractions. And then my alarm will wake me up in 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the day and the priorities. So usually it's really easy to justify a 15-minute nap. Mm-hmm. And for people that HireVue actually has a nap room. Yeah. So HireVue, we have a nap room for that. But if it's busy or if you don't have a slot, and I think Google does that too, I'm fine to go sleep in my car for 15 minutes and come back. But it's amazing how refreshed you feel in 15 minutes. If I sleep longer than that, if I sleep longer than 20 minutes, there's no gain and I actually feel worse. So let's say it's the middle of the day. If I took a 2-hour nap, I would feel like crap. Yeah. But it's that short nap. So I treat it like, my naps now, I treat it like going to the restroom. So I have number one, number 2, and then I've got like my brain drain, which is my nap.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it, and I feel great. I feel better than I normally feel, because most people feel groggy in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to invent the light bulb at 3 p.m.
Yeah,
Maybe you will at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But not 3 p.m. And so having a short nap, it brings me back.
No, that's really cool. And do you still drink coffee?
Yeah. So Lauren, he was saying to eliminate coffee and caffeine, but I still do that. I don't notice a problem with it. So I like to eat after my naps.
Yeah.
Because that kind of wakes you up a little bit.
Yeah. Not
before
the nap.
Yeah.
Then you don't restore your brain.
Yeah. But the one gotcha that is not very well known is what the long-term consequences are.
Yeah.
Because there are long-term consequences with sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Where you're more likely to get Alzheimer's due to your brain is not able to. So your brain actually secretes, it cleans itself. Like, they've done MRI studies, and you can see your brain is cleaning itself when it sleeps. And so the assumption is you're not doing that well enough. But the problem is there's not a big enough group of polyphasic sleepers where I don't have any sleep deprivation side effects at all. Okay. So when I started, I did. I had major ones, but once I figured out the naps, I feel great. And the one selling point here is there's no one competing for your time from 2:30 a.m. until 6:30 a.m. There's no one banging down your door demanding that time. And so it's great for you to work on your passion projects. Yeah.
That's so cool. And what about for people with families, like for people who, have kids or
that's why I do it. So I have a family, so I've got 3 kids. And so
that's right. Yeah. How do
before they actually don't notice. So the reason I started doing it is before I had so much pressure with my startup that I had to make my wife be a single mother, essentially, where in the evening I was working and I'd have to tell her, I'm so sorry, sweetie, can you put the kids to bed again and again? But now from 5 p.m. sharp until 9, I'm a fantastic dad. Like, I am 100% dad, where I can put the kids to bed every single night. I'm not stressed out because I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 2:30 and work on whatever I need to work on. And I still get like 9 to 11 if I had to like kick off some job on the cloud or like usually, we're running stuff through the night. So it's important for us to queue up our jobs before we go to bed. Yeah. So I'd recommend it even more for people who are family oriented. And it's totally worth it for my wife to let me sneak in a nap in the afternoon for 15 minutes. That's nothing. Like, I think I spend more time going to the bathroom than especially with your phone, right?
Yeah, totally. No, that's really cool. Glad you figured it out. Like, from my experience, for those listening, I tried. I don't do it consistently, but like after getting inspired by Adlan, I did it for I think 2 or 3 weeks. It wasn't as extreme as yours. I think I did like 5 hours sleep every day and then like a nap. But then one weekend on a Sunday, I clearly remember, for some reason, like I was just put into circumstances where I had to have sleep for unwarranted sleep for like 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the day. And then after that, my whole next week was ruined. I was like so exhausted. I didn't know what was going on, sleeping 9 hours a day. My body was like not responding. I couldn't think or anything. So you're right. You have to be very, very strict about it. Like as soon as you break the pattern, you're going to be in trouble.
And it's okay to have, like, it's rare now, but maybe once a month I will sleep like an 8 or 9 hour sleep just to kind of see what that's like. But I can usually recover pretty quickly. Even if I miss a nap, I can get back into it. So the other thing I've noticed is my self-esteem is tied to my productivity. Yeah. And so my overall happiness, because the other thing we didn't talk about is I'm a backcountry skier. A lot of people think I'm crazy, but crazy is relative. So if I'm not waking up at 2:30 to go work and program, I'm waking up at 2:30 to go hike some mountain somewhere and go ski it. And then I'm back home before most people are awake. Yeah. And so that's huge for me, for my overall mental,
that's cool.
happiness.
That's cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, you should definitely get back into it and just try to commit to it.
We'll create a little club, data scientists who do polyphasic sleep cycles. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
If we're in the same time zone, we could Slack each other at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's get back into the data science side of things. So, like, we've given people a bit of inspiration to, test out the polyphasic sleep cycle, especially, even given that you have a family, that's even more inspiration, because a lot of people think you have to be single to do that. But yeah, let's talk a bit more about data science. So you mentioned last time we talked a lot about deep learning, right? About how you use it at HireVue and so on. Tell us a bit more about your startup. So what do you guys do?
What are we doing there? This kind of goes back to one of the main reasons I left to do this full time, is I felt like there wasn't really anyone in our space that was doing this very well with helping a lay person get state-of-the-art AI into production. So these big companies, it's still a little confusing for engineers. So our goal is to be the simplest way for you to get world-class machine learning, mostly deep learning, into production. So we have these workflows, and you essentially gather the data, and then you get a model that can be deployed on the cloud. But the fun thing that I've learned doing the startup is once you really get neck deep in these production deep learning models, your appreciation of size changes dramatically. So before, I thought ImageNet was impressive.
Yeah.
So if you came to me and said, hey, I spent the week solving ImageNet, 1.3 million images on my own deep net, I'd say, wow, I'm impressed. Good job. Where now that feels more like MNIST, because we have models that have over 10 million images, and we have some that have over 30 million images, where they're so big, the idea of solving a 1 million image data set makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Where 5 months ago, that was not true. 5 months ago, like if you came to me with like, hey, I've got a 50 million image data set and you to build a deep net on, I wouldn't know how to do it. But, so we focused a lot of time and attention there. And then, and this is a quick side note for people doing startups. So I have a lot of background in patents. So I've done 7 patents for HireVue on machine learning. And the interesting perspective I have now is you have, did that cut out, or is it okay?
That's okay. It's okay.
Oh, okay, perfect.
A little bit, but it's okay.
So a lot of people feel like you need patents to protect your IP, especially in the US. So if you have a good idea, you're going to feel like, oh, I need to patent that because that's what's going to protect me. Yeah. And the thing I've learned is patents, it's really comparable to building a war chest. So if you and I are peers, but we're competitive, it's useful for me to have a patent, especially a couple of them, because if you try to push pressure on me, hopefully I have more patents that I can actually scare you away or put pressure on you. But if I'm competing against a big company like an Oracle or an IBM or a Microsoft or a Google, the patents, their value kind of evaporates because your war chest is too big. Yeah. Like if I have one patent you're infringing on and you have 1,000, you can definitely find something that I've infringed on. And then your pockets are deeper. So if it comes to like a lawsuit, the lawyers always win in the lawsuit. Yeah. But am I going to bleed more than you do? And so I think patents are great for companies that are smaller than you, but I've kind of come 180 where I'm really excited about trade secrets. I love trade secrets. So if you have a product and you have a trade secret and there's no way for me to reverse engineer it, that's fantastic. Yeah. Because if I'm a big company and you have a trade secret, I have no choice but to buy you for a ridiculous amount of money. And this is what I've seen looking at different case studies in different companies. So at Ziff, we feel like 3 months ago we had no trade secrets. Yeah. And now we have 2. Yeah. Ooh, so what are our trade secrets? Are you going to tell us? Yeah. I'll whiteboard what they are right here. So one of the things that I think we've really nailed is our auto scaling capability. Yeah. So we can run, essentially billions of inferences per day without losing sleep. Where 4 months ago that was not true. So we have very high reliability and very high throughput on thousands and thousands of recurrent connections, and we're really good at bursting traffic. And then the other thing that we've nailed, which I'm glad that we identified this as a trade secret, because I probably would have just started telling everyone. But my co-founder, David Gonzalez, there's a reason he's the CEO. he's good with that stuff. So one of the things that we realized we're really good at is dealing with mixed deep nets. So if you have a deep net where you have text and image and structured data, and you need a single model that maximizes the information from all of those, apparently that's confusing for a lot of people. And our approach, we're packaging that up as a trade secret. So one of the models we've used is we have a home pricing model where we predict the price of your home, but we use all of the images of your home, and we use the unstructured description, and we use all of the structured data. So that would include like square footage, number of bed, baths, when was it built, home style. And what we've noticed is taking the classical approach, we can take the R value on the price prediction from a 0.6 up to a 0.92. That's leveraging the information in the images and in the description. And so we're offering that as a workflow. So if you have data sets that are complicated and they're in that format, then we can handle combining audio, image, video, text into a single deep net.
Okay, wow.
So find those trade secrets and keep them secret.
So, and you don't have to like with a patent, you have to apply for the patent. With a trade secret, you just don't tell anybody. That's all.
Yeah, and the patents we've written, you go into so much information in the patent that an expert can recreate what you've done. And sometimes that's bad. Like if you're a huge multi-billion-dollar company and I'm doing something really interesting, if you can just read my patent. And sometimes there's really creative ways to sidestep a patent. Because I've worked on the side of protecting my patents and making them very broad. And so someone who's had similar experience can figure out loopholes and ways to kind of sidestep your patent and get similar value. So I'm a huge fan of trade secrets, but I think patents are still important. We're actually consulting with a company right now where we're going to go help them write a patent next week. And the reason we're doing it for two reasons. Your board loves it. So your investors, they really like patents. It makes them feel better. And they're relatively cheap. So you might as well file a patent on the stuff that isn't mission critical. But if you can keep it a trade secret and it really is hard to reverse engineer it, then
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting stuff. Well, thanks a lot. Sounds exciting what you're doing at Ziff. And by the way, if those listening, you're kind of like a bit lost in this discussion, make sure to check out the first podcast with Ben, because there we talk more about deep learning and what it is and how it works and why it's better than machine learning. We're not going to go into detail on that again, so not to repeat ourselves. But with that in mind, this all makes more sense. And even though still some of the stuff is like over the top of my head, so let's talk about some cool stuff. Like you mentioned that on, like you got some great feedback from the first podcast, and you got some, like you even met some people who before they met you had heard your first podcast, which I was really excited to hear about. So that's really cool. Like what I wanted, and you mentioned that on this one you wanted to like brainstorm some ideas. So let's do that. Let's like I watched a movie recently, not a movie, like have you heard of the show Black Mirror?
Yeah, I love it. I had not heard of it, and I was giving a talk to an MBA course. And I must have been in a bad mood or something because they were asking me questions about the future of AI. And I told a very, very dark future. Like I was supposed to speak for an hour, ended up being an hour and a half, and they just kept asking questions. And I kept talking about all these very disturbing ethical scenarios. And one of the students raised their hands and they said, "That's actually an episode in Black Mirror."
Oh, wow.
I was like, "Really? I need to watch this show." And like, yeah, there's some scenarios in Black Mirror that could definitely come to life.
And the one I've just seen. I saw one old one from like season 1 or something, which I didn't really like. But just yesterday, I watched one from season 3, episode 1, where they have these things in their eyes and they always give each other ratings. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I saw that one. I liked that one. I really liked the one where someone was able to, their spouse died. So this woman, her husband died, and she was able to recreate him using AI.
Wow.
So that's actually a pretty natural, like that was an idea I was proposing to the class, that if I have all of your phone conversations, like from these podcasts, and if you die, heaven forbid, I can have you say whatever I want you to say. So using deep learning, I can have a conversation with you. And if I mine your social feed and all your emails, I could potentially create a personality that feels very much like you. And is that going to help my morning process?
Yeah.
So if I can wake up in the morning and have a conversation with you on the computer, is that going to make me feel better? And you realize the answer is yeah. Like I'll feel a little better, but there's something very wrong about this. And I love that episode. So
that's so cool. Let's talk about the one with the kind of like ratings. Like what did you think of that? For me, it was very interesting to see that's where the world's going. And for those who haven't seen Black Mirror, like there's lots of episodes. They're completely unlinked. So we're not going to ruin the whole show for you if we talk a little bit about one of the episodes. And basically there, you know how like in Uber, you swipe, you give the number of stars to somebody? Well, in this one, every interaction you have with any person, you rate them from like 0 stars to 5 stars. And then in your eye, you have like this lens, which tells you who you're talking with, and you can get some more information on them. And to me, it felt like that's where the world is going. You know, like it felt like, like I was saying like to Adlan later that this is like what we're teaching in AI. This is the world that we're helping create. And I don't know if I don't really want the world to go that way. And, you know, like, what are your thoughts on that? Is there a way, are we really going to get super hyper connected and really rely on that much on technology that we're going to just, lose ourselves and just be all about how we interact, not only on social networks, but in real life and what ratings we have?
Yeah, well, I feel like we're already there a little bit because I've got a buddy in LA. He works for a big brand media company. He's an executive there. And for a lot of the parties he goes to, no one cares about who you are unless you have tens of millions of followers. So it's all about how many people follow you and how many people care about your day-to-day.
Oh, wow.
And if you have less than 1,000 followers, then no one cares about you.
Oh, wow.
And at least as far as marketing dollars. But I'm glad we're doing a video, because I can actually show you. So this little thing is the Raspberry Pi Zero.
Okay, yeah.
It's essentially flat. It's got a little camera on it. So I could actually do deep learning on this device. And it's actually a lot smaller than it looks, because if I take the case away. Yeah. So I could actually have this embedded in my clothing.
Yeah.
And I got multiple cameras in my clothing where I could really record every interaction I had with everyone. And that's useful information to have for safety reasons and for tracking. But you know, I could score an interaction.
Yeah. Hold on, you already do that? You already?
No, we're just playing with this. So this isn't like a real business driver for us, but just a curiosity, and you know, why not have the business pay for it?
Yeah.
So we're running deep nets on here that are these tiny, tiny little compressed nets that are optimized for this type of architecture, and they work fairly well. So if I wanted to grab faces and try to identify people for the day, I could do that on my clothing.
Okay, wow. So like you're going to be the one introducing this sometime soon to the world.
Yeah.
Well, so, and what do you think of those shows, like in general? Like it's I was thinking about this. It's really hard to at this stage to create those types of technologies, but it's really easy to create a show about it and like to portray that.
I think the shows are actually more important than people realize because it raises awareness. So Elon Musk has been kind of harping on how dangerous AI can be and how we need to be thinking about it in the future.
Yep.
And he's right, but some people feel like it's a little too soon. Like, let's not start having this conversation until things get weird in 20 years. Like, why should we have it now? But you actually mentioned the guy last time that has all those predictions. What's his name?
Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah, if you go and read his predictions, they're scary.
Yeah, totally.
Where like the year 2060, I'm not that excited for my grandkids to like.
2060 is like what, 30 years away, 35, right? No, a bit more.
Yeah, so like 45 years or 43 years away. But and his predictions aren't spot on. Like he's already been off on some of them, but I'd say he's more accurate than we are. Like he's put a lot more, and his predictions are impressive.
Yeah.
Like I think he's predicting that you could buy a computer equivalent to the human consciousness in flops for $1,000 by the year 2019. And I don't think that'll be true. It won't be $1,000. It'll be like $50,000 or $100,000.
Okay.
But like he made that prediction. I don't know when he made it, but the fact that he made it in the past, that's
yeah.
And you have the voltage chip from NVIDIA, which is a huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
That's like a whole other thing for us to talk about. Is we're kind of on the cusp of a deep learning revolution. So as soon as you have these voltage chips coming out this year, and Intel and Micron are working on their phase change memory. I think they call it octane memory.
Yep.
So you're going to see a deep learning revolution next year, unlike anything we've seen before. And so we're definitely on track to have the hardware and the learning capabilities.
That's interesting. Tell us more about the voltage chip. What is this chip coming out from NVIDIA?
Yeah, so a lot of times when chip manufacturers make improvements, I worked for Intel and Micron making NAND flash, and so when they make improvements, it'll be like a 30 or 40% reduction on size, or for people doing computing, it's a 30 to 40% reduction on computing capacity.
Yeah.
So the chip next year, the upgrade, it'll be 30% faster. It's never going to be 1,000% faster. Like
it's like iPhone 7 versus iPhone 6.
Exactly. Right? It's just like that.
About 30 to 50% better.
Yeah. So imagine going from the original iPhone to the iPhone 7, like in one generation. Yeah, and that's what NVIDIA's done. So they have their voltage chip is a 12x speed up. So I don't remember the exact number, but I think they spent $3 billion. It's in the billions developing it. And they made a major breakthrough on how they calculate these deep learning. So you have teraflops, which is a measure of your compute ability. And they have a new term, cycles. Yeah, exactly, cycles per second. And now they're talking about, or floating point operations per second. So now they're talking about a D flop, which is specific to deep learning. So if you're doing something that's not deep learning, you won't realize these speed ups. But if you're using deep learning, they came up with a 12x speed up this year.
Wow.
So 12x is amazing. And now you can buy their new GTX1. They have a single computer that is so close to a petaflop. They should have just made it a petaflop. Like their engineers should have just spent another $1 billion, made it a petaflop. So one computer, I can have a petaflop of computing, and it's going to change a lot of things. So ImageNet will literally be the new MNIST. You will solve ImageNet in less than an hour. Okay. Maybe less than 10 minutes.
Let's just go over these things quickly. So petaflop is what, 10 to the power of 15 floating operations per second or something like that? So gigaflop is...
gigaflop 10 to the 6, teraflop 10 to the 9th.
Then,
so it's 1,000.
Tera, 10. So it's 10 to the power of 12, right?
Yeah.
12.
Yeah, 10 to the power of 12.
And the next one would be exaflop, 10 to the 15.
Yeah.
If we're not going to check Wikipedia, guys, we might be off by 1,000 here. So
I think that's right.
So 10 to the power of 12. That means 10 to the power of 12 floating operations, like adding two numbers or multiplying or whatever operations per second, right? And that's how we measure the supercomputers. Like supercomputers are somewhere in the vicinity of like 10 to the power of 15 or something like that, like up there, right? And so that's what we're talking about. That's how quick these things are getting. And then the MNIST and ImageNet. So MNIST is basically like detecting numbers, right? Is this a number 1? Is this a number 9? Handwritten numbers, understanding which numbers. So a deep learning network can understand those. ImageNet is a much more sophisticated, right? It's a classification problem, right? You have to detect objects and images and classify what they are, like humans, whatever. Is that the one?
Yeah. There's 1,000 different categories of images, and there's over 1 million, and you need to train. Yeah. And we're superhuman accurate on that now.
Yeah. And so now it's not about, so like the ImageNet data set is with these new voltage chips is going to become as easy as the MNIST data set was, 5 years ago.
Yeah. And so with Ziff, we definitely want to get one of these machines this year.
Yeah.
Because we have a 36 teraflop R&D machine.
Yeah.
And it's very performant. So we get close. So I saw someone post on ImageNet, they're getting 1,500 images per second running through during training, and we get over 2,000 running through training. So we have a really good R&D box, but we're backlogged. We have too many projects to run on it.
Yeah.
Where if we buy the DGX1, it'll be the reverse. We actually don't have enough jobs to fill its bandwidth, and that's a much better position to be in.
That's so cool. How much is that going to set you back? Do you already know the price?
I think full retail is 160 or 170. We're Inception partners with NVIDIA, so we do get a decent discount.
$170,000 just
but it's worth it.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. No, and it's good timing, right? Like you just started Ziff, and this thing comes out. It's like couldn't be better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always have an anxiety thinking that we were starting a machine learning startup too late, because you've got companies like Data Robot and these people that have been around a couple of years before.
Yeah.
But I've realized our timing could not be better.
Yeah.
Where the prospects are actually asking for AI, where 2 years ago that no one was asking for it.
Yeah.
Well, very, very few people were asking for it. So yeah, so it's great timing. If we don't do very well, it's entirely on us, which is the stress of a startup. Every day we wake up, we have to optimize what we're working on. And
yeah, totally agree. And that kind of leads us into the quote by Andrew Ng, the founder of Coursera: AI is the new electricity.
Yeah.
The new industrial revolution is coming.
And I completely agree. And there have been a few revolutions. So you look at the Industrial Revolution, and then you have the computer revolution, and you have the web.
Yeah.
And I believe the AI revolution will be bigger than all of them.
Yeah.
And you will have protests and riots, which you had with the Industrial Revolution. So there were horse and buggy people protesting, and textile workers protesting because their jobs were being made obsolete. And I think we'll also see that with AI in the next 10 years, where you have entire industries that are made obsolete because of AI. So there's problems with that, because you have an uneducated workforce, like truck drivers and stuff, that have to go back into the workforce. And what are they going to do? Are they going to program? There could be, some people are talking about having a universal income or a livable income, where everyone will make $25,000 US a year or whatever that is.
For doing nothing.
So if you just want to go sit on a hammock at the beach, you at least know you can feed your family.
Yeah.
And surf a lot.
Yeah. Do you agree or not agree?
I think I agree with that. Because I think for how much money that's out there with these AI companies, you think you could definitely pay some type of tax into this fund. I would definitely want to, for the good of society, you don't want to have a bunch of people that are just drinking beer and surfing.
Yeah.
Because we need to continue to innovate and to stress ourselves and do hard things. And so I think you would have to find a fine balance between having a good safety net, but not having, a long-term bottle for people to, be lazy with. So,
And people generally need challenges, right? People need to be happy. They need to overcome challenges. If you got everything, or you got the minimal that you're happy with, you're not going to, you're going to be bored out of your mind. And when people are bored, they get unhappy and depressed.
Yeah. That's another reason for intermittent fasting, because when you eat, it's so good when you eat. Just kidding. But so the voltage chip is huge. I think starting next year, it aligns perfectly. So you have the memory industry with Samsung, Microsoft, or Micron, and Intel with they're doing a massive change in their memory technology right now. At the same time, you have NVIDIA with their breakthrough. Yeah. So all of that's going to align next year, where and the big breakthrough on the memory side is right now we're all very limited with how much RAM we can have on our laptops. So my laptop, I just bought a new laptop. It has 16 gigs of RAM, but we've been able to buy laptops with 16 gigs of RAM for a while now. Yeah. Where what you'll see is 2 to 3 years from now, you could have a terabyte of RAM.
1,000 gigabytes.
Yeah, 1,000 gigabytes. And imagine what you can do with that.
Wow.
Even today, I get out of memory errors that I have to be smart about.
So what drove that breakthrough?
So the breakthrough is you have DRAM, which is your working memory. So that's where all your stuff is, your programs when you open it. And it is so much faster than disk, like a hard drive. Yeah. I think it's like 3,000 megabytes per second, or 2,000 to 3,000 megabytes per second, where your hard drive's like 100. And so that's why we run programs here. We don't run them here. If you use all your memory on Linux, you can start running on hard drive, and that's called swapping. Yeah. You actually write it, and it's super slow. Your whole computer just comes to a screeching halt. And so they invented the solid state drive, which is good. You've got NAND solid state drives, and they're now becoming much more popular where they're faster, but they're only like 300 megabytes per second. And they have some special ones you can buy that can hit 2000 megabytes per second. But the big breakthrough with this new memory, everything is 3000 megabytes per second. So now that your long-term storage, which is huge, this is like your 4 terabyte drive, it's just as fast as this over here.
Yeah.
So why not just make them the same thing?
Yeah.
And so what's happening is the difference between volatile memory and non-volatile memory or working memory and long-term storage, that difference is going away. So you'll just have one storage. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So it's great for us, and for people who like AI, it's even better. So that's a big bottleneck that's now fixed.
Yeah.
And they're already shipping it, but they're kind of on the cusp of major breakthroughs next year.
Okay, cool. And so tell us, what is your mission at Ziff? Like, what are you guys, like, you're working on some exciting projects, but what's the end goal? Like, what do you want to do for the world? Yeah,
so there's lots of reasons why we're doing this. So one reason, we want to work with the people that we want to work with. So we want to work with very, very talented people and kind of control who's around us, and also control that environment. We want it to be a fun place to work. There's a lot of perks that you can do once you have a business, where if you want to have a climbing wall in the office, or a trampoline, or arcades, or Xboxes, or if you want to have a private chef, like we see these companies that do that, and like that's fun, but that's not why we're doing it. That's not the main reason why we're doing it. The other reason we're doing it is we want to work on the problems that we want to work on when we want to work on them. And sometimes, like with Google, with DeepMind, they have the luxury of working on problems where there's no market appetite. Like them teaching a computer to play Go, there's not a market for that right now.
Yeah.
Like we know that will open up markets, and there's side benefits of them doing that.
Yeah.
And so having a company that's profitable, it's growing, we can hire really smart people, we can work on really hard problems, and we can work on what we want to work on. The main goal is we want to I joke that we are the AI missionaries for Utah. So we're out there spreading the word about AI, and our goal is to get AI into as many products as possible in 2017 and 2018. So as many products as we can, we want AI to be leveling them up and differentiating them. And then the final part is impact. So we want to have as much impact as we can. And this sounds, so we always think of impact as being good, but impact could also be bad to some companies. And so some of that impact could be reducing cost. And so if you're a company and you're selling inferences and we cut your legs off, that's actually good. Like it's maybe not good for you, but it's good for society. And so, so AI everywhere and AI that's cost effective is really the focus.
Okay, good. Do you guys think you'll ever get to general artificial intelligence?
Yeah, and that I'm glad you brought that up, because the thing that doesn't scale, so hopefully, I think this is fair to discuss. So one of the issues that's going on right now is there is a major skills gap for these hardware devices. So if I come, let's say you're company A, you're well respected, people know who you are, you're in the Fortune 1500 largest companies in the world. If I come to you and I say, hey, you need to buy this $200,000 deep net server, I can probably show you a pitch. You'll be impressed by it. You're not going to buy it.
Yeah.
And the reason you're not going to buy it is there's a major skills gap where you don't have the expertise to leverage that. And you can't connect the dots between that and value. Yeah. In the end, we have to make money as a business. And if I can't connect the dots, I'm not going to buy it. And so one of the things that we've noticed is bridging that gap is very, very helpful. And so providing examples that are closer to the company for what they need, and then filling that gap where if you can't hire that $200,000 plus a year deep learning expert, then you can use this general workflow to provide value. So the thing that we've been working on right now at Ziff, and I feel like we've done it, is we have a general workflow for training models where there's not a human in the loop. So if you have images that are grouped into different folders, into like a folder structure where it's on the cloud or it's in like a zip or a tar file, you're done. with the deep learning problem. So what you do is you upload it, and then it goes through our platform where we use best practices, and we give you a very competitive model. And we're really pleased with how we're doing. So the thing that we take away from you, which is a good thing, is we take away from allowing you to decide what the validation set should look like, because most people are not qualified to make that decision.
Yeah.
And so the validation set that's the set that we remove from your data set to make sure it's working.
Yep.
And then the other thing we take away is network architecture decisions.
Yeah.
So most people, unless they're a full-time deep learning expert, they're not qualified. And then we take away the training headache.
Yeah.
So training massive data sets on the cloud, managing the optimization and the learning rate decay. So we've rolled that all up into a pipeline that we offer our customers. And so it's not exactly general AI, but it's close because it's taking care of image classification, audio classification, text classification. So I see it as like
AI in a box.
AI in a box, but as far as having Jarvis in your house that you can talk to, it's not Jarvis in your house yet, but it's kind of the stepping stone.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
no, that's pretty cool. So you're on the way. You're on the way to bring a new consciousness to this planet eventually.
Yeah. And so we're working as fast as we can to improve AI and how it's used in society.
Yeah.
And we'll keep working until we're scared.
Okay.
But for now,
okay. I actually had an interesting question on this. There's so many companies that are like racing towards AI. For instance, we've got Google DeepMind, you've got OpenAI, a new project by Elon Musk, the Neuralink, right? Similar kind of concepts to expand our brains on. Like you've got Ziff, you've got quite a few startups and more mature companies as well in this race. What role do you think will governments play in all of this? Because ultimately AI is like a superpower. It's like a super weapon you have, right? And, right. Like, there's regulations around nuclear weapons, which countries can, which countries can't have, that individuals can't go and create them. AI is not a nuclear weapon, but it's close. So what are your thoughts on what role governments will play and how quickly they will start playing this role?
Yeah. So this is something I feel pretty strongly about. It's really sad how much the U.S. spends on their military right now. So they spend trillions of dollars on technology that is decades old. So we have these aircraft carriers, and you may remember in the news, the U.S. shot 52 or 54 Predator missiles into Syria. We kind of have a crazy president right now, unfortunately.
No, I didn't hear that, but okay.
Well, okay, but those missiles are $1 million each.
Oh, wow.
And the technology is, over a decade old. And so you just spent $52 million to destroy some jets in Syria. Imagine this scenario where I drop 100 drones out of the sky. They free fall. Their arms come out and their blades turn on 100 feet before they hit the ground. And they go searching for jets.
Yeah.
And all it is just a little deep learning camera, and it's got a payload of C4. It's got an explosive. It's going to find the jet in the hangar, and it's going to find the most critical part on the jet. So the drone knows if I explode right here, that's terrible. Like they will not. It may not destroy the whole jet, but they're not salvaging anything.
Sorry, just when you say blades come out, you mean the propellers?
Oh yeah. So imagine
they're not cutting anything. They have the explosive on them.
Yeah, so you have a quadcopter. So you have imagine like a DGX-1 or something. So you've got a quadcopter with 4 blades. It falls out of the sky, and then right before it hits the ground, it's just free falling. So it's totally silent. Right before it hits the ground, the props turn on, and it goes searching for targets.
And it has C4 explosive attached to it.
Yeah, and so all of the technology components are there that could have been demonstrated instead. Yeah. Like I don't know if the U.S. is working on stuff like that, but like if you had given me or you $1 million in funding, we would have pulled that off.
Not 52. Like 1 million's enough.
Yeah. And you would have had fewer civilian casualties, and that entire spend may have been $300,000 or $500,000 to execute that. So I would love it if the U.S. would take a big risk. I don't see it as risk, but I would love it if they said, you know what, half of our military spend has to be AI. Yeah. Because there's secondary benefits that come from that, society benefits. And it keeps the U.S. on edge with their military power, which I think is not required. But so So you're talking about responsibility, and I'm kind of pushing the gas on the pedal, saying we need to really amplify what we're doing as far as AI. I think Elon, he's worried about a nuclear arms race equivalent with AI, where the drones I just described, let's say they can also target, soldiers or military capable individuals and take them out too. And you have 1,000 of those drones and I have 1 million, and then someone has 1 billion.
Yeah.
And these drones, they charge with solar. That suddenly becomes really scary, because if you have drones that are they're given a mission and they can kind of go off and, they do like this levy search pattern through your country, where they go and do an objective and then they charge and they do an objective. It becomes an arms race. So I've heard that some of these leaders like Elon, they're pushing for the U.S. to agree to never allow AI to make a kill decision without a human in the loop.
Yeah.
So if the drone's flying around and decides you have an AK-47 and needs to take you out, they want a human soldier somewhere through a satellite to make that final call.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the responsibility piece that people are pushing. But I think it'd be pretty easy to show type 1, type 2 errors. Where getting back to humans doing things poorly, if you're making a split decision where your life is on the line, you're more likely to kill a civilian or to not save a hostage. But if you allow AI to just do it, then you're going to get, headshots right here and no civilian casualties. And, we could definitely beat the human, but that becomes quite scary if you have all these.
It's kind of like with the driving, right? Yes, there will be accidents of automated cars. It's inevitable, right? You cannot have 100% all the time. But how many accidents right now do we have on the roads? Like millions, right? Every year, so many people die on the roads. And so for the politicians, it's not a question of introducing self-driving cars that never have accidents. Their challenge is to convince society that we need self-driving cars, and we need to understand, yes, there will be accidents that are non-human, are error-related, that are AI-related, AI error-related, but they will happen like 1/1,000,000th of a time with frequency as the human ones currently have.
Yeah, so the vanity metric there is deaths per 100 million miles, and Tesla has already beaten that. So Tesla is better than that. And the other key point is, here in my local town, we have people that die every week driving, but no one learns. Like the fact that you fell asleep because of your Polysleep experiment and you crashed and died, no one's going to learn from that sad experience. But the beauty with AI is it can literally, they can recover the cameras, potentially they can recover the memory, and all of that can go into a big learning algorithm where it's constantly getting smarter. So right now, I feel like all the deaths out there with driving related deaths are completely wasted. There's no value that society gets. It's a complete loss. But with self-driving cars, there will be some measurable, of course we don't want accidents, but it's not a total loss. We will learn from these. So getting back to the government. So right now I actually see the government as an AI limiter rather than an AI assist, because you have these classical organizations where they're limiting AI's integration in society. So one example happening right now in the US is with the FDA, where you're bringing up an important point. The important point is, tell me about the human equivalent. So I know the self-driving car killed your relative, but tell me about the AI or the human equivalent. The human equivalent is worse. And when it comes to the FDA, that's the Federal Drug Administration for the US. They kind of safeguard a lot of the drugs that are rolled out in some of the technologies. And they're being a major roadblock right now for AI in healthcare. And the reason is they're not holding the doctors to the same standard. They're holding AI to a higher standard. So if I have an algorithm that can out-predict you as a dermatologist, it should be diagnosing all of your patients. But they're holding AI to such a high standard where the error rates have to be like above 99% or something absurd, where what they need to be doing is say, what's the type 1, type 2 error rate of the physician? Because it's quite high. Like the physicians have a major error rate that is being beaten by the AI. So how about we just double down on the AI? And so right now, I think Europe is actually leading the US with some of this research because they don't have as many roadblocks.
Interesting. And why do you think that's happening in the US? Why do you think Because I've even heard that there's already an app on your phone that you can get, and you can take photos of your skin. Maybe even we discussed this in our previous podcast, right? And it can tell you if it's cancer or not. Like, what's up with the limitations that, for instance, in this case, FDA is imposing?
Yeah, so it's hard to know what the main drivers are, but it's not just the FDA. What I see is you have kind of this new idea injection with like a big, old, massive organization, and it's hard for you to move it or impact it. So we saw the same thing in HR with IO psychology. So it's this huge body where they kind of control the assessment space and the predictive analytics. And so when you come and try to inject deep learning and data science and machine learning, that's foreign to them, and they're not really receptive to that, and they're very slow to change. And in the US, you don't really look to the government to lead the charge on innovation. You look to the private sector. So the private sector innovates and then sells it to the government. Mm-hmm. So the government is not going to innovate internally at the rate that they need to. So maybe that's one of the drivers, is you're dealing with organizations that aren't equipped to innovate as quickly as the private sector.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know the exact reason for the FDA, but it's discouraging. I'm to the point now where I would actually be angry if one of my kids started to have symptoms and I went in and they had to get a brain scan to see if there was a tumor. Now I feel angry that, like, I would want deep learning to be run on that image to assist the radiologist, because the issue is, so this is a pretty personal thing for me right now, because my wife has chronic kidney disease. So she's had it for 10 years, and her kidneys operate at 40% of what ours do. And when they get below 15%, she'll need a kidney transplant. Mm-hmm. And she is still undiagnosed. So she's had a kidney biopsy. She's met with these nephrologists. She's undiagnosed. They don't know why her kidneys are functioning at this level, and they don't know if it's going to decrease. So we're hoping they've gone down based on the challenges of just having kids with childbirth. But when we go and meet with a nephrologist, he's literally printing off a piece of paper, which is her blood work, and he's scanning it. And like, this just makes me want to yell, because he's looking for like 2 or 3 numbers. And as a human in your head, tell me, like, what kind of complex calculations can you do?
Like 10 times 5?
Yeah, exactly. Like 10 times 5. That was hard. Times like 10.3 times 10.7, and the fact that you're Caucasian and your BMI is this and your patient history is this. And so there's 2 things that are pretty upsetting here. So one is the human brain is not equipped to comprehend that data. Yeah. And the other thing that's upsetting is the human lacks the experience when it comes to these rare outlier diseases, that there's a good chance that he may have never seen her disorder. Yeah. But if you combine all the nephrologists on the West Coast, they have seen it. Yeah. And so AI is so much better to tackle this problem. And I'm not saying the AI has to replace the nephrologist, but the AI could return me a top 10 ranking of what's the likelihood that my wife has this. Yeah. And there's a really good chance that her disease or her issue would be top 3 or top 5 just by doing a Bayesian approach on a really big data set. So it's a little kind of upsetting that it's and to your point, the Watson, IBM Watson, right? It's already doing that. Like it diagnosed the case of rare type of cancer for some lady who, like, she was going around the doctors for years and she couldn't they thought it was one thing and they were treating her for one thing, and it completely, like, within a few split seconds, it diagnosed, or like a minute or so, diagnosed her with a specific type of cancer who nobody else had thought of, just because it has access to all of the cases that ever existed and that are on the internet. And so I agree, like within 5 to 10 years from now, whenever we go to hospital, we're going to be like, do you want a robot surgeon or do you want a human surgeon? No, thank you. I want a robot surgeon. Well, and even you going to the hospital may go down, because you may just have your smart device where your kid's coughing, you pull it out and it actually diagnoses the disease based on the cough sound, based on millions of kids coughing. Yeah. Or the rash example that you brought up.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So cool. Well, Ben, we kind of like coming close to time. I want to keep this about an hour. There's so much more I want to talk to you about, so you definitely have to come back on the show again. And by then, probably you would have had some more major breakthroughs at Ziff and any other projects that you're working on. And yeah, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of these insights.
Yeah. Should we end with our one last tip to the listeners on how to get a job?
Yeah. That's right.
The one secret tip. So you probably have an opinion. I have an opinion. I'm sure I'm sure they complement each other. So what's your one tip? I'm a new data science candidate. I show you my resume. It's kind of boring. Yeah. And you're going to give me some advice. What's that advice?
What's my tip when you come to an interview
or even before the interview? Like you're a data science hiring manager and I've talked to you at a meetup. Yeah. So I'm not going to give you an interview. Yeah. Yet.
Okay.
What advice?
I got it. I got one. So I saw this once when I was at Deloitte. And this guy, there's super high competition for this one role, and this guy completely smashed it. And this is like the advice I can give to anybody. If you really, really care about the company you want to work for, and you really want to work there, register a website, www.why, for instance, Dropbox should hire bentaylor.com. And set up a really cool flash animation with all your skills and you like moving through the whole corporate world and ladder of Dropbox or whatever company you want to work for, and show them how you're bringing value all through this animation, and add some programming and like maybe some data science into this animation and show how data is coming in, coming out, what you're doing. So when you send it to the hiring manager or whoever you contact them with, you don't send them your resume, you send them that one link. And it already has the explanation in the name of the link, why Dropbox has to hire bentaylor.com. And not to click on that link would be really unwise of a person, just out of curiosity. People click on it. As soon as they're there, they see this amazing animation, how much you need to show how much work you're willing to put in, how badly you want it. So people will hire you if they see you want, you're not just applying to everybody, you specifically want to work for them. If they see that, they will talk to you. At least they will talk to you. Most likely they will already prioritize you over the other candidates because you've put in that effort. You've shown them that you want to work at that company. Yeah,
that makes me laugh because it actually kind of brings up a competency that David and I were talking about in LA, where because I feel like the number one reason we hire someone is passion. Yeah. So that kind of hits on that. Like you're passionate enough, you're willing to do the work. But Dave and I were sitting down for dinner and we were trying to really flesh out like, well, how are we different than the rest of the people breaking into the space? What's unique to us? And I think the thing that we settled on was we're crazy. And so, we both met each other through separate, career paths and different things. But the level of crazy that we both have, I think that distinguishes us. And that kind of leads into your example. So for you to go and do that, you're a little crazy. Like, you're a little crazy to kind of spend that time. And so being passionate and crazy, motivated, because most of the people we get in the application process, they're all the same. They all did Coursera, they all did Northwestern, they all did this program. And I've talked to people who've done like undergraduate, graduate data science programs at universities, and they're all unremarkable. Yeah. Like they're just kind of the same. Yeah. And it's not saying anything mean about it. It's just like, there's no one exceptional. There's no one I'm excited about. Yeah. Like I'm not excited to hire anyone. Yeah. But the people that stand out, I still remember, so I'm going to give a shout out to Adam Rogers. He's at Microsoft right now. I was presenting deep learning at a local university, and most of the students don't know anything about deep learning. So it's kind of an entry level. I'm talking through it, talking about what's going on. He's on the front row, and he's asking me about Siamese nets and Torch and like the questions he's asking me, like your eyebrows go up. Where he's on the front row and he's asking me these questions, and I turn to him, and at the end I kind of tell them why people get jobs, but in the back of my mind I'm saying, well, whoever this kid is on the front row, I don't know who he is. He's gonna have no problems getting a job. Yeah. And sure enough, like 2 weeks later, he got a job where he was competing against PhD level data scientists, but I think he dropped out of his graduate program. Yeah. Like, so it's not about your titles or your career. It's that intrinsic motivation. Like, if I tell you to go do ABC and I see you at the next meetup a year from now or a month from now and you haven't done that, I have no faith that you're going to get any data science job. Yeah. But if I find out that you stayed up all night this weekend and you actually sent me a code example and I can tell you you've put a lot of time to this, that you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
To summarize, your one tip is
intrinsic motivation and passion. You need to fall in love with it, and then
crazy.
A little crazy garnish.
A little crazy. Sprinkle a little crazy on the top.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Ben. It's a pleasure, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to get tons of value out of this.
Okay. It's good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.